my brother Marcus sneered from across our parents' mahogany dining table. I thought you'd be too busy with your, what do you call it? Your startup? I carefully placed my fork down, maintaining my composure despite the familiar sting of his condescension. At 32, Marcus was the golden child, the successful investment banker who could do no wrong. Meanwhile, at 29, I was Alexandra, the daughter who dared to leave a prestigious consulting firm to build something of my own. It's doing well, actually, I replied calmly, taking a sip of water. We're expanding into new markets. Marcus let out an exaggerated laugh, drawing our parents' attention. New markets? You mean you finally got a second client for your tech consulting business? Mom gave a nervous laugh while Dad pretended to be deeply interested in his pot roast. They'd perfected the art of avoiding conflict during these weekly family dinners, especially when it came to Marcus's playful teasing, as they called it. Speaking of business, Marcus continued, straightening his designer tie, I just closed a massive deal. Sterling Technologies is merging with our firm. Once the board approves it next week, I'll be heading the entire West Coast division. That's wonderful, honey. Mom beamed. Isn't that wonderful, Richard? Dad nodded proudly. That's my boy. Always thinking big. I felt my phone buzz in my pocket but ignored it. I'd learned long ago that checking messages during family dinner would only give Marcus more ammunition. You should ask Alexandra for advice, Marcus smirked, cutting into his meat. I'm sure someone running a tiny consulting firm from their apartment has lots of insights about major corporate mergers. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. Then again. Finally, I excused myself from the table and stepped into the hallway. 3 urgent messages from my assistant. Emergency. Sterling Tech Board meeting moved to tomorrow. They're voting on the merger. Need your decision by 9 a.m. I smiled, sliding my phone back into my pocket. Marcus had no idea that 6 months ago, I'd quietly acquired a controlling interest in Sterling Technologies through a series of shell companies. My tiny consulting firm was just the public face of a much larger operation. I returned to the table where Marcus was still holding court, detailing his plans for after the merger. You know, Alexandra, he said, barely glancing my way, if you ever want to get back into the real business world, I might be able to find you an entry-level position. Something more stable than your little experiment. I picked up my wine glass, studying the deep red liquid. That's thoughtful of you, Marcus. But I think I'll stick with my, what did you call it? My tiny company. Your loss, he shrugged. Some people just aren't cut out for big business. Mom changed the subject to safer territory, Marcus's upcoming birthday party, while I sat quietly, already planning my outfit for tomorrow's board meeting. My brother had always underestimated me, just like our parents. They saw what they wanted to see, the younger sibling who couldn't measure up to Marcus's success. What they didn't see was the empire I'd built in silence. Tomorrow they'd finally understand exactly who they'd been mocking all these years. As I left my parents' house that evening, Marcus called after me, "Don't forget what I said about that entry-level position. A small fish like you could learn a lot in my pond." I turned back, giving him my sweetest smile. "Thank you, Marcus. I'll see you tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" He frowned. "I have the Sterling merger meeting tomorrow." "I know," I replied, getting into my car. "That's exactly why I'll see you there." The confusion on his face was just a preview of what was to come. Tomorrow my brother would learn that sometimes the smallest fish turn out to be sharks in disguise. The next morning I arrived at Sterling Technologies headquarters an hour early. My heels clicked against the marble floor as I made my way to the executive elevator, not the public one Marcus would be using. The security guard nodded respectfully. "Good morning, Miss Pierce." I smoothed my charcoal gray Armani suit, a power outfit I'd been saving for this exact moment. The boardroom was empty when I entered, exactly as I'd planned. I wanted to be settled in my seat at the head of the table when Marcus arrived. My assistant Emma appeared with my coffee. "The board members are gathering in the waiting area," she whispered. "And your brother just entered the building." I nodded, opening my laptop. "Perfect. Let's make him wait a few minutes." Through the glass walls, I watched as Marcus strutted into the waiting area, confident smile plastered on his face. He was working the room, shaking hands, completely unaware that his world was about to shift. The board members' polite smiles held a secret. They all knew what was coming. At exactly 9 a.m., Emma opened the boardroom doors. The meeting will begin now, she announced. Marcus entered first, his eyes fixed on his phone. When he finally looked up, he froze mid-step. The color drained from his face as he saw me sitting at the head of the table. Alexandra. He blinked rapidly. What are you doing here? Please everyone take your seats, I said calmly, gesturing to the chairs. We have a lot to discuss. Marcus remained standing, his expensive suit suddenly looking too tight. There must be some mistake. I'm here for a merger meeting with Sterling Technologies board. No mistake, I smiled. Shall we begin? The board members filed in, each nodding respectfully in my direction. Marcus's confusion turned to disbelief as he watched them defer to me. For those who haven't met me in person, I began, I'm Alexandra Pierce, majority shareholder of Sterling Technologies through Pierce Global Ventures, or as my brother calls it, that tiny company. Marcus collapsed into the nearest chair, his carefully maintained composure cracking. That's impossible, he whispered. Your company, it's just a small consulting firm. Actually, I continued, pulling up the shareholding documents on the screen behind me, Pierce Global Ventures has been quietly acquiring tech companies for the past 3 years. Sterling Technologies was our largest acquisition 6 months ago. The board members nodded in confirmation. Marcus's face shifted from shock to anger as realization dawned. You're the mysterious buyer? His voice cracked. But the merger papers. Yes, about those. I opened a folder. I've reviewed your proposal thoroughly. Attempting to acquire Sterling Technologies through a hostile takeover, planning to strip it for assets and lay off 80% of the workforce. I closed the folder with a sharp snap. The board and I have decided to decline. You can't do this, Marcus sputtered, looking desperately around the table for support. The deal is almost final. Almost being the operative word, I replied. As majority shareholder, I have final say. And I'm saying no. Marcus stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. This is a joke. You're my little sister. You run a tiny consulting business from your apartment. I leaned forward, maintaining eye contact. No, Marcus. That's just what I let you believe. While you were mocking my small fish status, I was building an ocean. The consulting firm was just a front, keeping people like you from seeing what I was really doing. Mom and Dad will never dash. Mom and Dad have no say in this. I cut him off. This is business, Marcus. And in this room, I'm not your little sister. I'm the owner of the company you tried to destroy. His face had turned an interesting shade of red. You planned this. You let me humiliate myself in front of the board. No, Marcus. You did that all on your own. Years of underestimating me, mocking my work, treating me like I was beneath you, that was all you. I just finally decided to show you the truth. The board members shifted uncomfortably as they watched my brother's careful facade crumble. His career-making deal was evaporating before his eyes, and with it his sense of superiority. Meeting adjourned, I announced. Emma will show everyone out. I paused, then added, except you, Marcus. I think we need to have a family discussion about respect. As the board members filed out, I sat back in my chair, watching my brother's world reshape itself around this new reality. The small fish he'd dismissed for so long had turned out to be a shark, and he was finally realizing he'd been swimming in my ocean all along. The aftermath of the board meeting spread through our family like wildfire. Marcus had stormed out of Sterling Technologies, his carefully constructed world shattered. By dinner time, my parents' phones were exploding with calls from relatives and friends in the business community. Their daughter, the one they'd written off as unsuccessful, was actually one of the most powerful business owners in the city. I was in my office reviewing contracts when my father's name flashed on my phone. For the first time in years, I let it go to voicemail. 10 minutes later, my mother called. Then Marcus. I silenced them all. Emma appeared in my doorway. Your brother is in the lobby. He's demanding to see you. I sighed, closing my laptop. Send him up. Marcus burst into my office, his tie askew, his perfectly styled hair disheveled. How long? He demanded. How long have you been planning this? I gestured to the chair across from my desk. Sit down, Marcus. You look terrible. He remained standing, pacing like a caged animal. Do you have any idea what you've done? My reputation, my career. is exactly as secure as you made mine, I finished. How many times did you mock my tiny company at family dinners? How many times did you offer me entry-level positions, treating me like I was beneath you? That was different, he protested weakly. I was trying to help. No, I cut him off. You were trying to feel superior. And now that you know the truth, it's killing you. My phone buzzed again, a text from Mom. Please come home. We need to talk about what you've done to your brother. I showed Marcus the message. See? Even now, they're more concerned about how this affects you than about anything I've accomplished. He sank into the chair, suddenly looking older. Why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me? I asked. Or would you have tried to take control like you do with everything else? Before he could answer, my office door flew open. Our parents burst in, Mom looking flustered, Dad's face red with anger. Alexandra, Dad started, what you did to your brother Dash was business, I interrupted. Just like when he tried to orchestrate a hostile takeover of my company. Your company? Mom's voice was shrill. Since when do you have a company this size? Why didn't you tell us? I stood up, smoothing my suit. I've built this over 3 years, Mom. I've mentioned my work at every family dinner, but you were always too busy praising Marcus's latest achievement to listen. But sweetheart, she pleaded, we're family. Families don't do this to each other. Really? I raised an eyebrow. Like family doesn't constantly belittle and undermine one member's achievements? Like family doesn't dismiss someone's hard work as plain business. Dad stepped forward. Now listen here, Dash. No, you listen, I said firmly. For years I've watched you put Marcus on a pedestal while treating me like a failure. Today wasn't about revenge. It was about finally showing you who I really am. I turned to Marcus. The merger's off, but Sterling Technologies is always open to fair business partnerships. When you're ready to treat me as an equal, we can talk. And if I don't? He challenged, a hint of his old arrogance returning. I smiled. Then you'll find that my tiny company owns controlling interests in several other firms you might want to work with. Your choice. The silence that followed was deafening. My family stood there, finally seeing me clearly for the first time. Not as Marcus's little sister, not as the family disappointment, but as a powerful businesswoman in my own right. Now, I said, checking my watch, I have another meeting. Emma will show you out. As they left, I heard my mother's muffled sobs, my father's angry muttering, and Marcus's heavy silence. But for the first time in my life, their disappointment didn't touch me. I had built something they couldn't diminish or dismiss. That evening, as I stood at my office window watching the city lights flicker on, my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. I underestimated you. I'm sorry. I typed back a simple response. Yes, you did. Dinner next week? This time as equals. His reply came quickly. I'd like that. I smiled, knowing things would never be the same with my family, and that was exactly what I wanted. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your critics, but becoming so successful they have no choice but to respect you. The tiny company they'd mocked had become an empire, and I had finally stepped out of the shadows into my own light. Let them adjust to the new reality. I had an ocean to run. Would you like me to continue?